All right, good morning. I feel like it's been so long. It feels like it's been a long time, right? I didn't realize my kids had the day after Halloween off. Like, I don't know why they had it off, but they randomly did, and I was just like, oh, I guess I'm staying home. I know, yeah, it's becoming, I forgot they did it last year too. My partner still had to go for like professional development. I know, I had to stay home all day with like three like sugar wasted children. So I put them to work. I made them help me take down all the Halloween decorations. So I was like, we're going outside. You can eat all the candy you want, but we're going outside today. So anyway, did everyone have a good Halloween? It was like a long time ago now. It's November. I hate November. Well, I mean, I love Thanksgiving, but November always feels like it's like windy and it's like the weird, like we skip over Thanksgiving, but I love Thanksgiving. It's a day about football and food. It's like my favorite holiday. I love Thanksgiving. Second favorite holiday. I took a picture, like we all dressed up. We were so cute, right? My partner took the picture, but my kids were, so my oldest was Sally, and then Wednesday, and then like a steampunk, and then I was Indiana Jones. But we had a lot of candy on Halloween. It was great. Did everyone have a good time? Anything fun or memorable before we move on? Yeah. Okay. And yeah. Okay. Anybody else? Any other stuff? Yeah. Yeah. I figured when she looked at you. Where was that at? Okay, nice. Yeah, it's a tricky venue. It's a hard one to get in and out of. What was that?
And then before sophomore year.
Oh my, so you've been busy. Nice, nice. Yeah,
When one costume.
that's fun. What were you dressed up as? You were afraid of it? You don't have to answer it. You don't want to. Okay. That's funny. I love it. How fun. Mhm.
Cool and cute, whatever.
Yeah.
Pretty, but then like.
Yeah, that's not quite a pretty one there.
Literally, it was so comfy the whole night, and I had a mustache. So that was the only like annoying part about it.
That's exciting. It's always fun to win, right? Yeah, you had your hand up too, yeah.
Okay, so every year my friend neighborhood meeting does like this big haunted house thing. People come from all around to see it.
Yeah.
Be really out to themselves this year. There's like an exorcism in this garage and
Oh, wow.
actors and everything.
Oh,
Really cool.
that sounds really cool. Oh, I'm like, I wish I had gone to that, right? We went to a few like haunted houses in the area, but nothing that elaborate. That sounds fun. Anybody else? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So.
Now I'm curious. I'm not gonna say anything. Oh, okay.
And like sleepwalking, I don't know why I came up with this or how my brain came up with this last night, and I was like, we're asleep. How, like, when I'm like sleeping in the middle of the night, how do my socks come off?
You know what's so funny is I had the same conversation with my 9-year-old, and she woke up this morning. She's like, my socks aren't on anymore, but they were on when I went to bed. And I was like, well, you were probably just not awake enough to realize that you took them off. So we'll say the same thing to you. That you likely in like a half awake state just took them off or kicked them off and don't remember because you weren't alert, right? But sleep is a fun one. I love the topic of sleep. There's so much we don't know. But it's so fascinating to study, especially dreams. I love studying dreams. Yeah. 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 And you can train yourself to remember them, but it takes some effort, right? I'm obsessed with dream interpretation. So like I've gotten to the point where I tend to remember them because I write them down right away. They fade really quickly. Like literally, I mean, you all know, you've probably had a dream. You're like, oh, I can't wait to tell everyone. And 2 minutes later, I had a dream about something, right? They fade so fast because you're not awake. It's wild. I love truths. They're fun to study. All right. Oh, I can take this down. I'll just leave this up all day. That's what we'll talk about, right? I had one more exciting thing. I'm just going to brag. We won our playoff game for soccer, and we get to go to the championship game. We played the #1 team, and they came in. They were like, I was just like, I'm just glad that we're here. Like, it's fine. We're ready to be beaten. Like, we're in 4th, and they were in 1st. And they're dirty. They're like that first place team that elbows and is like mean and rude. And like my girls were all afraid. And we beat them 3-2. I was like, oh, poor guy. I beat him last year in the playoffs too. And so when the second he saw me, he's like, oh, I'm going down. I'm like, yes, you are, sir. Yes, you are. So anyway, soccer playoff championships for my 10 and 11-year-olds, right? Hardcore competition there. Yeah. No. Well, she wore her like Renaissance costume to school, but then didn't dress up at night. So I know I said the same. I'm like, what kind of model are you to our children? Like, for shame, right? So, but she did walk our dog and carry all the candy. So I guess I give her credit, right? Last year I was like an inflatable dinosaur, so I couldn't carry the backpack. I was like, I kept trying to put it on, and I was like, oh wait. So yeah, so she had an important function, but did not dress up. For shame. So it's November, right? November 6th already. Like, where is it going? I told you, November always flies, right? November is going to be a fast month. It just always is. I want to talk about 2 things really quickly. I posted this when I canceled class. And just to make sure that all of you saw it, I made it due by the end of the day today. I didn't want to have it be something where maybe you didn't see it for some reason or whatnot. So it's due by the end of today. It shouldn't take you very long to do, but this way we don't fall behind. So I posted a lecture video, and thank you, Jen, for letting me know that it was like, I forget, there's a button I have to push to make things visible, and I decided to hide it from all of you for some reason. So if you haven't watched this, make sure you do watch it at some point. And then the link right here is to the participation assignment. All you're doing is picking a birth control method and writing about it, right? Just a little bit. So make sure you do turn that in by tonight. It is worth 10 points, so you want to make sure you do that. The other thing, since I saw you last, you did take the exam. It was like a really long time ago at this point, but I will share with you just a little bit of like how people did in general. This is for exam number 2. The high score was a 97. The low was a 72. The average was 90.1, and 50 minutes was the average amount of time that people took. Right? So a lot of A's, the average was an A, like the very bottom of an A, but still. A lot of you did really well. Even the lowest score was a C. I think this test was probably the easiest of the 3, especially without the diagrams and stuff. So I hope you feel good about that. Again, it feels like a long time ago at this point, but we do have one more exam to go and one more unit. So in this unit, we'll look at chapter 13, which you're kind of looking at on your own. Pregnancy and birth, which we'll cover today. Probably one of my favorite chapters because I can tell you the story of how we had our kids, whether you want to hear it or not, right? I can share it with you. We'll look at STIs or sexually transmitted infections, power and sexual coercion, and selling sex and sex images. So lots of interesting topics for our last third of our class. And again, it always feels like it goes quickly from here. So any like questions, thoughts, anything about any of this stuff before we, get going? Sure. Yeah. I was actually, as I was talking about this, I was thinking I should probably mention it. So it's due on the 15th. I made it due before Thanksgiving break or before Thanksgiving week, so that you would hopefully be able to enjoy that week a little bit more. So it is due a week from Wednesday. Okay, so it's coming up. So definitely be thinking about that. Some of you had said you wanted to do like field trips or write about experiences that you had. Please feel free to run anything by me if you have questions. I think that would be great. But yeah, it's coming up in about a little over a week. Anybody else? Other questions, thoughts, anything? All right. So our topic for today then, let me leave this out, is going to be covering chapter 12. So again, make sure you look over chapter 13, watch that video. undo that one assignment that's due by tonight. And what we'll look at here is how do we become pregnant, right? So chapter 13 was all about how do you avoid getting pregnant, avoid getting STIs. Now we're going to look at how do we become pregnant? What are some ways that can happen? There's obviously kind of the traditional way, and then there's some assisted reproductive ways that we'll talk about the experience of pregnancy, childbirth, all of those kind of things. So that is our plan here for the next day or two. Oops. It's like the happiest looking little sperm ever, right? They're so cute. Okay. Things you never expect to say. Look at those cute sperm, right? They are though, they're very cute. So just as a quick kind of reminder, we talked about this like a month or so ago, but when we go through the menstrual cycle, this plays a really big role in like our ability to get pregnant, right? And so just as a quick review, if I go back and we had that like diagram of the menstrual cycle, assuming kind of a typical 28-day cycle, which a lot of people don't have, but assuming this, right? Remember we had that menstrual phase in the beginning, right up to about like day 5 or 6 or so on average. And then we have the follicular phase. And then right around this point, right in the middle, right around like day, let's say 14 to 17, we have that ovulation phase. And then this right here, after somebody ovulates, we call this period of time the fertile window. Right. So in that phase, right after somebody ovulates is when they're most likely to get pregnant. Then we have the luteal phase at the end. So remember, right around here, right around day like 13, 14, there's a big surge of hormones. A person ovulates, that egg is released from their ovary, starts traveling down the fallopian tube toward the uterus. And at this point, right here, is when a person is most likely to get pregnant because there's an egg there, right? If again, you were having intercourse or introducing sperm really early in the cycle, no egg. Very late in the cycle, no egg, right? So right here is when you are the most likely to get pregnant, whether that's on purpose or not. And we call that period of time the fertile window. I found a little video that kind of gives you an overview of this process. I think it's helpful. It's very dramatic though. They made it like an epic story where you almost feel bad for the sperm because so many of them die. But I'll play it for you. I think it's kind of a nice little overview of the process of conception, and then we'll talk about it a little bit, right? But when sperm are introduced into a woman's body, whether it's during intercourse or during like a assisted reproductive method that we'll talk about in a little bit, right? If the sperm makes it to the egg, that's when fertilization occurs. A woman's not pregnant yet, right? But fertilization, and so of the millions of sperm that enter the body during intercourse, only about 1,000 make it to the fallopian tubes, and then only 1 fertilizes the egg. And the second they fertilize it, it depolarizes, as they were showing you, so that the other sperm can't also enter that egg, right? So it is a story of incredible odds, even they make it dramatic. I guess it is dramatic, to be fair. But when a single sperm cell from a man, right, penetrates the outer coating of the egg of a woman, then we say that that cell has been fertilized and conception has occurred. Now, not until that fertilized egg travels down the fallopian tube and implants into the uterine wall is a person actually pregnant. But this is the first step to that, and most likely to occur right here during that fertile window, right after somebody has ovulated. Okay. So obviously this can happen naturally, right? And for a lot of people it does, right? They have intercourse, whether it's planned or unplanned, trying to get pregnant or not trying to get pregnant, and they can get pregnant that way through like natural like sexual intercourse. But a lot of couples do need help getting pregnant, right? And this isn't just couples that are like maybe non-traditional couples. This isn't just people who are like 2 women or 2 men or whatnot. There's actually a huge rise of infertility. Right? Infertility is something that our culture is grappling with more and more and more. And it's becoming an issue for people more frequently. Infertility is defined as the inability to conceive or get pregnant after 1 year of regular sexual intercourse without the use of any form of birth control. So after trying actively for a year, you're not able to get pregnant. right? And this might include like timing your ovulation. This might include like monitoring. It could include like all sorts of different things, but a year, right? And obviously some couples aren't able to get pregnant naturally, which we'll talk about a little bit more. But this is like the definition of infertility. And so when people are struggling with this, there are a lot of options available depending on what's driving the infertility. Yeah. Yeah, so one proposed thought has to do with like hormones, right? All of the additives and things in food are changing our hormonal levels, like menstrual cycles are starting earlier and earlier. So that's one big piece of it. It also affects the viability of sperm, all of the additives and things that are in our foods and things we consume. That's one big theory. I think also people are having children later in life. And so it's typically harder to get pregnant naturally the older that you are. And so when people are having, you know, technically it seems weird to say, but 35 is considered like geriatric or old for getting pregnant, like enough so that you are like flagged as high risk if you're 35 or older. But a lot of women don't go through menopause until like their late 40s or late 50s. And so we're seeing more and more people getting like married or entering relationships later, which means they're having children later, but it's harder to get pregnant in your 30s and 40s. And so they require more assistance. So I think it's kind of a combination of those type of things, right? But it is something that is more and more common, even among like heterosexual couples who are trying to get pregnant. So if somebody is struggling with infertility, whether it's because they have a medical issue, or maybe it's like a gay, lesbian, bisexual couple that is trying to get pregnant, and is missing an ingredient, right? There are all sorts of different things that you can do. So typically what would happen is if somebody's struggling with infertility, they would go to a reproductive doctor. We actually have one of the top 10 in the world in Thousand Oaks, which is kind of cool. Fertility and Surgical Associates, right? It's where we went to get all of our help with having our children. And they're right here in Thousand Oaks, and literally, I think they're 8th in the world, which is pretty cool. Ridiculously expensive, which we'll talk more about down here. My children were very expensive, but that's okay. I want to say they're worth every penny, but it depends on the day, right? Let's be honest here. But no, they are. But there are a lot of things that you can do. So you would go to a doctor and they would evaluate you to figure out what's going on. Now, in a traditional like heterosexual couple, this would be looking at the woman and looking at the man, right? There might be an element of either or both that's present. It could be for men that maybe they have a low sperm count or their sperm viability isn't very high. So they're not producing as much sperm, or the sperm aren't as like strong and viable as they should be. It could be that they have some kind of blockage. That could also be the case. For women, it could be that there's a blockage in their fallopian tubes, their uterus could be out of place, their egg count or quality can be low. There's a ton of reasons why people might struggle to get pregnant that are like medically driven reasons. So it might be that we need surgery to fix it. It could be like you take a drug to produce eggs or cause yourself to ovulate. It could be that you have to find a donor. It really depends on what's going on. For us, like my partner and I, at this point, well, my oldest is 11, so it's been like 12 and a half, 13, 14 years. We wanted to get pregnant. I say we, my partner wanted to get pregnant really badly. She turned 30 and was like, I need children. I was like, okay, let's do it, I guess. I'll try really hard. I'll visualize, right? No, it didn't work. But at 30, she was like, I really want to have kids. And we had talked about it. And I've never wanted to carry children. It's just not my identity. And she always has, so it worked out really well. Though I missed my opportunity to eat for like 2 or 3, like, which is always a little bit sad. But I was a supportive eater. Like I ate with her the whole way through. I'm sensitive like that. All of you, you know, it's important to remember to be sensitive. But we went in and we figured we were just missing an ingredient, right? Like we don't have sperm. Plenty of eggs between the two of us, no sperm. So we went in and we tried to do some procedures, which I'll talk about down here. But it turned out that my partner had a bunch of like reproductive health issues that we had no idea about. Both of her fallopian tubes were completely blocked. So she had to have surgery to have her fallopian tubes removed in order to get all of like, because when they're blocked and leaking, that fluid can actually prevent pregnancy from occurring. So we didn't know about that. We never would have in a million years that that was an issue. But let me back up. I skipped a step here. So one of the first things that we often do when people are trying to get pregnant and struggling is we give them something called a fertility drug, right? So my partner and I went into this place down in like Manhattan Beach before we knew about the one here in Thousand Oaks. And we went in, we had to pick a sperm donor, which was a very interesting process, by the way. So my partner was going to be pregnant. We picked a sperm donor that was as close to me as possible, like hair color, height, weight. We tried to even go interests and like ethnicity, but as best as we could, right? You get these descriptions, it's kind of fun. And then they give you celebrity lookalikes. One of them was like a Tom Brady lookalike. I was like, I want that one. My partner's like, it's not Brady's sperm. Like, come on, back up here, right? So we made PowerPoints. We gave them to all our family, had our family vote, where we're both such teachers. And then we picked a sperm donor to represent me. So we're like, okay, we got my partner, we got the sperm donor. And then we went to a place in Manhattan Beach. And what they did is they gave my partner a fertility drug, right? And when you take these drugs, they cause you to produce and release more than one egg a month. And this is how people end up with twins or triplets or octuplets, which I can't even imagine. 2 is a lot. I can't even imagine 3, 4, 8, whatever. But these fertility drugs, they cause you to ovulate more than one egg. So we went to this place, we took fertility drugs, and then we did what is called artificial insemination, or more typically now, IUI, intrauterine insemination. So with intrauterine insemination or artificial insemination, you time a woman's menstrual cycle, waiting for the fertile window. So you go in and do ultrasounds, you do blood work, you're waiting for that surge of LH to indicate that someone has ovulated. And then once they've ovulated, you take a very small little catheter and you insert the sperm up into the vaginal canal. And then the sperm has to swim up, find the egg, try and fertilize it. So artificial insemination is the least intrusive of all of the procedures. And on average, it costs about $1,500 to $3,000 a try. So that includes things like all the ultrasounds, the blood work, the medication if you take it, and then the procedure, right? So my partner and I picked a sperm donor. Sperm's expensive, tiny little thing of sperm, $500 or more, right? Ridiculous, right? Guys, you have a gold mine, 300 million sperm a day, right? You can go donate it, make actually quite a bit of money doing so. But $1,500 to $3,000, we did this 3 times. 3 times, no luck. The only good thing about it was right next to a cupcake place. So every time we had to go to this place, I got like 3 cupcakes. I gained like 12 pounds trying to get pregnant here, or my partner trying to get pregnant. But we did 3 rounds of this, no luck. Now, the guy that we were seeing was really rude, super homophobic. He wouldn't even look at me, which was like really, really awkward. And so we decided that we would go somewhere else after this. We're like, okay, forget it. We're moving on. So we went to this place here in Thousand Oaks. And the first thing the doctor did was like, we're going to run some tests. Let's see what's going on. And like I said, my partner, her fallopian tubes were blocked, so she needed surgery. It turned out she had low egg count, low egg quality, and her uterus was misshaped. It's like we had all these issues and we had no idea. We literally just thought we were missing the sperm. And so then we had to go to the next step, which I'll talk about in a moment. But the stereotype of artificial insemination, right? The turkey baster. I borrowed this. My partner said if I'm on Thanksgiving dinner, I need to bring it back. So I will bring it back. But the turkey baster, what's the problem with this, right? Why would you think this wouldn't actually work for something like intrauterine insemination or artificial insemination? Anyone remember the size of a typical male ejaculate? A teaspoon. A teaspoon. That would be like this right here, right? Like this, something like this is the stereotype, but it's way too big. They use like a very small, thin catheter. But this is the stereotype. I found a clip of this. Like, I don't know if any of you have seen the movie The Switch. It was a comedy, turkey baster. But the typical like size of a male ejaculate is about a teaspoon. So he's a very, very small catheter, not a giant turkey baster. Now we'll remember to take that home. Like, oh, where'd I put it? There it is. Like, I want my turkey. I gotta take this home, right? Serious. But so artificial insemination is the lowest level, IUI as it's called. If that doesn't work for a variety of reasons, We move on to things like IVF or GIFT or ZIFT or like all these different acronyms that are on here. So IVF is another step above, right? So IUI, about $1,500 to $3,000 a try, right? They're introducing the sperm up into the vaginal canal, and then it has to swim up, fertilize the egg, and all these things. Still has a lot of steps to do before a woman becomes pregnant. IVF, or in vitro fertilization, is much more invasive. It's a much longer procedure. It takes about a month or so from beginning to end. And so what happens in IVF is a woman is prescribed a ton of hormones. The hormones on average, I'm just going to write the hormones alone. The hormones on average are about $3,000 to $4,000 per try, per cycle, just for the shots. And it's a daily shot. So for a month, you take injections into your stomach, and it causes you to produce and grow more eggs. Okay, so instead of growing or like maturing one egg, on average, people might get like 6, 10 plus, it depends. Okay, so you're taking these hormonal injections every day for a month. And then once you have grown eggs and you're right about here, before you have ovulated, they go in and they surgically remove these eggs one at a time with a very long needle up through the vaginal canal, right? So they go, you're out, you're completely asleep for this. You look mortified over here. You're completely asleep and under, it's a surgery, right? And they go up one at a time with a very thin needle, and they remove each egg individually. Once those eggs have been removed, they then, in like a little petri dish, introduce the sperm to the eggs. They let them fertilize each other. And then the ones that have fertilized and are ready to go, that have already like met and joined and had that fertilization occurred, we then take that egg and put it all the way up inside a woman's vaginal canal into their cervix. So we've skipped a step here. Rather than having the egg and sperm have to meet, we've introduced them in a petri dish. They've made it 5 days or more. We can evaluate the quality of that like fertilized egg. And then we put the fertilized egg back into that woman's body and hope that it implants into the uterine wall. So it's much more involved and invasive. On average, IVF, not including the hormones, costs about $9,000 to $12,000 per try. Okay, crazy, right? It's so expensive, so expensive. So if you're adding this up, it's a lot. Okay. My partner and I tried this 3 times before we got pregnant with my daughter. My daughter, Kaya, my oldest, cost $48,000. I wanted this kid. We wanted this kid badly. Her sisters were like bargain basement deal, right? Like they cost like nothing. But she was $48,000 to have from beginning to end. So my partner and I went into this place here in Thousand Oaks. She had surgery, had everything like fixed and removed, addressed as best as we could. We had a doctor who was super kind, Dr. Kumar, one of the nicest people I've ever met. We went in, we did a round of IVF and failed. My partner grew 3 eggs. We pulled them out, no luck. Put them back in, no luck. Okay, did another round. She grew 5 eggs, put them all in, no luck. At this point, we were both so ready to give up and just try and adopt. It had been like 16 months of trying to get pregnant. And our doctor, he looked at us and he's like, so I have an idea, because this is a really unique situation. He's like, he had never worked with 2 women before. And he looks at me and he's like, how do you feel about becoming pregnant? And I was like, nope, like, we're not having kids then, I guess. He's like, okay, you don't have to become pregnant, but what if you grow eggs this time? And my partner was like, ooh, I get to give you the injections for a month. I don't want to, right? So we had a long like talk about that and decided that I would go through a round of IVF, which changed me forever. I didn't like salads before IVF. Like now I like salads. It like hormonally changed me. My partner said I've never been the same since then because I eat salads now. I don't know, whatever. I'm like, I'm just trying to be healthy to counter all the cake I eat. But so I went through a round of IVF. And jokingly, I told the doctor, I was like, watch, I'm going to be like a super egg grower. And I grew 52 eggs. My partner grew 3 and 5. I grew 52, right? Go me, I'm an egg grower, who knew, right? A hidden talent, right? So I went through a round of IVF. It was during October and I wasn't allowed to eat any candy because chocolate can reduce like your like viability. And so I always tell my daughter, my expensive daughter, I'm like, you cost me a month of Halloween candy. And like whenever she's being bad, just joking. But I went through this, they pulled out 52 eggs. Remember the procedure they have to do to remove those eggs? 52 times I was stabbed with a needle. And then I hyperstimulated and was sick for 3 weeks afterwards because I grew so many eggs and then my body crashed. But after I did that, we fertilized them with a sperm donor. So we took my eggs, then we picked a donor to represent my partner, right, as close to her ethnicity, her background, her everything as possible. And then we took her eggs with the sperm donor to represent me, and we put 3 of them into her body, or 2 of them, sorry, 2 of them into her body. And we got pregnant with our daughter, Kaya. So technically, Kaya could be mine, could be Leah's, my partner's. But I think if you look at this, right, we look very similar. So these 2 look very similar. And this one looks very different. Yeah. Yes. So when you grow that many eggs and then you remove them, my body completely crashed, right? So I was like throwing up and dizzy and like felt awful. My hormones basically bottomed out. And so I missed like 2 weeks of school. It's not common to grow that many eggs. I don't know why I did grow that many, but I did. And it was totally a joke. I was like, I'm gonna grow 52, and I grew 52. I don't know how I predicted that. But yeah, I just felt really lousy and had to like recover and let everything balance out. I had to take medication. So yeah, it was quite a process, to be honest. Yeah.
Being stabbed that many times.
Yeah, honestly, like I didn't even like it was just sore, like my abdomen was sore, like really badly, right? For like a couple of days, and then it was gone. Like they go up through the vaginal canal with the needle, like, and so it's not as bad as it sounds, but it's definitely not like, I mean, you're asleep for it because it would be probably painful if not uncomfortable, even if they just numbed you. So it was more the like hormonal bottoming out that was the harder part, honestly. Yeah.
Does like insurance or anything?
No. No, 0. Right. So the only thing insurance covered was like some of the very early like stuff. The surgery was covered by insurance. So my partner's like surgery to have her fallopian tubes removed, 100% covered. I think it cost us $15. What? Just our copay. But everything else was completely not covered, which is maddening, right? It was so expensive. Yeah.
I love This American Life, and it's not too long ago, they did something, I think it was actually in New York Post or something like that. But the story, I think it was a Mayo Clinic, and they were doing all of this, except a nurse was an addict.
Mhm.
So she had stolen the drugs
Oh,
and placed the sale.
wow.
So these women are going through extraction in horrible pain, but they won't stop.
Yeah.
Because they put so much into it.
Yeah.
And it took a long time for them to figure, for the Mayo Clinic to figure that out.
Wow. That's awful. Yeah. I mean, these are not only are they expensive procedures, but they are very emotional procedures. I mean, this all together took us like 18 months to get pregnant from start to finish, right? Of when we actively started, 18 months and $48,000, right? And so you can imagine, the fallout of that. Like, I mean, this was just an incredible procedure. And on the plus side, my partner's body knew what to do the second time. So we were like, okay, it took us 18 months to get pregnant time 1. We better start right away. Of course, we get pregnant the first time on the second one. And it was so cheap. All it was were the hormones. My twins cost $3,000. They were, again, bargain basement deal, right? Like Black Friday deal right here, right? They were only $3,000 and Kaya was 48. So I don't know, you get what you pay for. They're difficult, but I love them. But that might be because they're mine. Yeah. Yeah, so for the twins, we put in, so for our first one, we put in 2, one of mine with a donor to represent my partner, and one of hers with a donor to represent me. And we ended up, yeah, and then we ended up with,
I'm confused.
okay,
So-
no, I'm not asking.
In her uterus,
And
just one of them happened to.
right, okay, so when we used my eggs, right, we found a donor that was as close to her as possible. So again, we were trying to mimic like as if we were having eggs from me, right? So we have a donor that's like a donor and my egg, and a donor and her egg. And we put them both in. We actually had twins for 3 days. And then we joked that Kaya ate her twin, because that's why she's so big, right? But we had twins for like 2 days. We found out and then it was gone the next day. So it was not really like upsetting in any way. So we ended up with one. Now Kaya is pretty obviously my egg. Like it's obvious. She likes cake. Like I mean, now this is my informal test. I have 2 children with wicked sweet teeth, and then one that doesn't like anything sweet. Simple. I don't need a DNA test. That's my conclusion right there. Now, I couldn't nurture it, but so we ended up with one. And the second time we put in 3 eggs. So, and I didn't want to put in 3. I told the doctor, I was like, we're going to end up with twins. I can feel it. And he's like, well, we'll see what happens. And of course we ended up with twins. So that time we put in 3, 2 of mine, and 1 of hers. And so my twins, they look nothing alike. It's clearly one of mine and one of my partner's. So they're really unique. I mean, they make for a super interesting psychological study because they're twins, but they're not biologically related to each other, which is wild. I don't know how many cases of that there are. It would probably be really interesting to study. They're totally like very, very different entities because one is clearly biologically mine and one is clearly biologically my partner's. So we'll never test, but it's pretty obvious when you look at pictures. Like, I mean, like I showed you with even this one without having my partner in there, like you can see like these 2 look very similar and she looks very very different, very much like her mom. Yeah. Yeah. It's not any higher. So you have the traditional risk, but some people are having those procedures because they have issues with their uterus, and so they might be already naturally higher at risk, but it doesn't have anything necessarily to do with the procedure. Yeah. So again, these are all the things that are kind of like common. There are a few variations on this. So now there's one called GIFT and ZIFT. They're just like variations on IVF, different levels of like how many you put in and like how long you let them like sit and fertilize each other. So there's also ways that you can manually inject one sperm into an egg if fertilization is struggling to occur. But the kind of standard one is IVF and IUI. So again, a lot of different things, but these are expensive procedures and they're very involved and they take a long time. So that was like our journey to having kids. And like, I mean, we know people who have adopted because they couldn't have children. Like I have a heterosexual like friends that are married and they've adopted because they couldn't go through this. They went through it multiple times and it didn't work. There's also other options like surrogacy. Surrogacy by far is the most expensive of all of these. Surrogacy is when you have somebody carry the baby for you. So traditionally, what people will do with surrogacy is they go through IVF and then they put that egg, that fertilized egg, into another woman's body. So it's actually your biological child, but it's being carried by somebody else. And that's usually how it works. There are tons of variations on that. Surrogacy on average, $50,000 to $100,000. And that includes like paying that woman for the time that they're pregnant, right? And like as a job almost, but it's ridiculously expensive. And so what happens here is, again, you go through IVF and then you put that into another woman, that fertilized egg cell, and then they carry that baby to like all the way through until they go into labor. So very, very expensive, but some people consider this, and you can obviously do this privately. Like sometimes people will do this with siblings or friends or family members. But if you go through an agency, that's about what it tends to cost. I have a little clip of that. If you've seen Baby Mama, the whole thing is about surrogacy. The else carry that child. And it does like take a while, right? Like you can go through all of that IVF stuff, and then that person could have a miscarriage or have issues, and so you're kind of supporting them all the way through that process. but that is another option. Obviously, things like adoption are options as well if all of this fails. But these things are becoming more and more common. Interesting too, there have also been a few cases where in a lab, so nothing nothing like in actual like people as of yet, but we've hit a point where we can fertilize 2 eggs together without any sperm, right? So they're hitting a point where they can actually merge the DNA of 2 women together, for example, and not need a sperm at all to fertilize them. So that's something that's kind of interesting and on the horizon, though not available yet. So interesting, developments that we have going on. Yeah.
Just starting, would you only be able to have, would you only be able to get women from that?
Yeah.
Like, you would only be able to get females from.
Yeah. Most likely. Yeah, because it's a sperm that carries the SRY, like the male determining gene. So as of now, it would be that you would only be able to have a girl because there's no gene present to give you that yet. So it's interesting. They're working on like splicing and combining DNA. I think it was in Switzerland. It was like a lab in Switzerland or Sweden, somewhere over in that area. But it is kind of the future. I mean, there's just a lot of genetic research like that happening. But as of right now, it would only be you'd only be able to have a girl biologically. Yeah. So once pregnancy has occurred, right? So fertilization occurred through either the assisted reproductive methods or intercourse, and then that fertilized egg travels down, implants into the uterine wall. At that point, a person is pregnant. Now, typically, to find out if you're pregnant or not, or confirm it, you take a pregnancy test, right? I have a couple of like empty boxes, but there's a bunch of these. There's like a million of them. Some of them are digital, some of them are not, right? Quite a few of them and different options. They're not the cheapest thing. They're kind of expensive. But what they're doing is they are measuring for a hormone called HCG, human chorionic gonadotropin. And this is the hormone that is released when implantation into the uterine wall occurs, and it causes pregnancy to be detected. So when a woman believes that they might be pregnant, maybe they like missed a menstrual cycle, or they're not feeling well, or they have some like suspicion that they might be pregnant, what they do is they take one of these tests. Now you open these, you urinate on them, and it's looking for HCG in your urine. I have a clip of this and then we could talk about it a little bit more. These are fairly accurate, but blood tests are always going to be the most accurate. So if somebody uses one of these and it says you're pregnant, then you go into the doctor and have a blood test for HCG, and that will either confirm or deny. So I'll come back to the slide in a second, but from the movie Juno, there's a scene where she used very much what this would look like, right? You have a pregnancy test, you urinate on it, and then you wait a few minutes, and then it either gives you like a plus or a minus or 2 lines or 1 line, or some of the digital ones will say like pregnant, not pregnant, depending on the test and which one you purchase. But she makes a couple of like mistakes in there, right? She said she drank her weight in Sunny D. You actually shouldn't dilute your urine like that. When you drink a lot of a water or like orange juice or whatever it might be, it dilutes the urine out. You're more likely to not have it test accurately. You should also do this first thing in the morning. So right when you wake up, your urine is the most concentrated at that point, and you're more likely to get the most accurate result. So if you were to use one of these and they come back pregnant, then again, you go to the doctor, they do a blood test, and it will tell you how much HCG is in your system. They typically check it again in a week to see if it's doubling. It should double roughly every day in the beginning, the amount of HCG, just to indicate that pregnancy is being maintained. Sometimes you can even tell if you're having more than one by the HCG levels. So when we found out the first time that we were pregnant, like our levels were kind of low, but the second time they were through the roof, and they were like, you probably have twins or triplets. So I was like, oh my gosh, please no. Luckily it was just 2. But you can usually tell if you're pregnant and how many you might have from the level of HCG. They also then calculate the due date for your baby. And so this is a formula called Naegele's rule. And what you do is you calculate the due date by subtracting 3 months from the first day of the last menstrual period, and then you add 7 days. So it's named after the doctor who coined it, but that's how we get the due date of your baby. So or babies, right? So this can be a little tricky if somebody doesn't know like when they had intercourse, or maybe they had sex more than once. If you're doing procedures, obviously then you have a very clear date, but we calculate the due date roughly, and that gives you an estimate of when that baby will be born. Any questions, thoughts, comments, anything here? Yeah.
I mean, I know a lot of people do, but I know some people don't track when their menstrual cycles are, like, so they wouldn't know.
They might not know specifically. Yeah.
So just-
Yeah. And then usually as somebody progresses through pregnancy and they're doing ultrasounds, based on the size and the like development of the baby, sometimes they change the due date if they have a better indicator. Like, so let's say we guess that it's, November 1st, but then as we're doing the ultrasounds and monitoring, it's clear that we were off. Like you could always adjust it later, but sometimes it's a guess. It could be kind of like a rough estimate, which is why so few babies are born on their due date, because it's not precise. It's the best that they can do. Yeah.
So going back to infertility, we discussed certain hormone levels changing. We talked about people getting older. I was wondering how certain diseases would play into people becoming infertile. Like, are there specific diseases that like prevent you from being infertile?
So some of the STIs play a really big role, like syphilis, gonorrhea. Some of the STIs can actually have a very long-term effect on your ability to get pregnant. So if people have had, like, for example, syphilis for a very long time, it can cause infertility, it causes scarring in the fallopian tubes, and it can cause all sorts of problems with getting pregnant. So I would say sexually transmitted like infections and diseases are one of the most common infertility issues. So that might also be contributing. When we were talking about, you asked what factors are contributing, STIs are on the rise as well. So more untreated, unnoticed STIs could also lead to more infertility. So, anything else for now? Any other thoughts or questions? So pregnancy has occurred, right? So somebody is pregnant, now they're going to go through the process of prenatal development, right? Prenatal comes from pre-nasi. Nasi is Latin for birth. So prenatal just means before birth, right? Is what that means. Postnatal would be after birth. So prenatal development is wild to watch, right? And you can see just in even these 4 images here, it is an incredible like progression that takes place over roughly 9 months or so. And so at this time, we usually divide this into like trimesters, which we'll talk more about in a bit. But you can see that we start off as a zygote, then a blastocyst, then an embryo, then a fetus. We go through these different stages of our development. A zygote is that fertilized cell. So a zygote is the cell that's created when egg and sperm meet. And after a certain number of days, we call that cell a blastocyst. And the blastocyst is a fertilized cell that's developed for a certain number of days. It's divided enough times that you can oftentimes tell the viability of that cell. And that is what you would put back into a person during the procedures like IVF and so on. An embryo is the term that we use for the first 3 months. So in the first trimester, first 3 months, we would call that developing baby an embryo. And then the last like 6 months, we would call it a fetus. Fetus is Latin for offspring or young one, and that's where that term comes from. But when we start our development, we are so incredibly tiny, right? We sometimes use images, let me find it here, of like food or fruits or vegetables to give you a point of reference for each week. At 4 weeks, when you're already 4 weeks in, a baby is the size of a poppy seed. Just, I mean, absolutely minuscule, right? And by the time you're born, the size of a watermelon or a pumpkin or something much, much bigger. But what we see is it's an incredible amount of development from something that's tiny and looks very inhuman to by the time you're born, right, looking much more like a person. And it's a lot of unfolding and processes that are occurring. I have a video of this. It's like an animation of the first like 13 weeks. After that, it's a much less dramatic, but there is a little bit of nudity in there, just to warn you. The nudity is not the alarming part. There's some salsa dancing at the beginning. And that's the truly alarming part. I left that in there because I had to watch it. So now you get to see it too. Not real, it's an animated version of it. But you can see how we go from this tiny little spot, right, this tiny little cell to implanting into the uterine wall and then kind of developing. We look very alien-like for a time. We're very, very tiny. And then more and more like a little person, the longer that we go into pregnancy. And we typically divide pregnancy up into trimesters. We have semesters, right? 2 semesters for a year. Trimesters are 13-week periods of time. So in each trimester, we see different like things that are developing, different like stages that people go through. Very common that people don't tell anyone that they're pregnant until they've made it through the first trimester, the first 13 weeks. And it might not even be that they know. Oftentimes, you know, if women aren't actively monitoring or trying to get pregnant, or they have very irregular menstrual cycles, they might go through like a few months without realizing that they're pregnant, until maybe hormones have built up and they start to feel sick or they start to notice some changes in their body. But the first trimester is 13 weeks. And it's when people are most likely to have a miscarriage. You might not even know that you're pregnant yet, and you might lose that baby, right? So oftentimes in the very, very early stages when everything is unfolding, that's when people are most likely to run into issues. And so typically once people make it through the first trimester, that's when they'll let others know that they're pregnant because it's much safer for a second and third trimester, right? The first one is the most dangerous, right? In terms of losing that baby. So in that first trimester, by the time it's over, about 3 inches long, you can definitely hear a heartbeat. I heard Kaya's, my oldest's heartbeat at 6 weeks on an ultrasound. It's really early, but because we had paid all this money and we're monitoring, like that was part of our deal, right? That included extra ultrasounds. And so we were able to hear the heartbeat and then 2 heartbeats the second time, which is just wild to hear. But about 3 inches long, developing internal organs, everything's unfolding. In the second trimester, you can distinguish sex of a baby. So usually around like 14 to 16 weeks, you can find out what the sex of that baby will be. Before that, everything is very much the same. It's hard to tell. But right about here, that baby is getting up to about a pound. They start opening their eyes. They start moving around. Typically, you can feel the movement around like 15, 16 weeks for the first time, like a little fluttery feeling. And then it gets more and more intense and strong the bigger that baby gets. But the third trimester, they're continuing to grow, get up to about 5, 6, 7 pounds on average by the time they're born. Their skin becomes smooth, hair starts to grow, like everything is finishing off. So there are different kind of like, you know, marks that babies hit depending on which trimester they're in. And again, a lot of wonderful like apps and things that will tell you what's happening for each week. And they all use this comparison of food. The whole way through, we took a picture with each food for each week. And my partner liked to see how she would like grow bigger, which was wild with the twins. 2 watermelons at the end, right? But you know, it's really cool. Like there's a lot of, like I said, apps and like different things that will tell you what's happening this week, what you can expect, what are common issues. So much information, which is really, really helpful. When we found out that we were pregnant, we put 2 raspberries on our in-laws' plate, and we served them dinner. They invited them over for dinner. And we put 2 raspberries in front of them, and my father-in-law ate them both. We're like, you just ate the babies, right? Mother-in-law figured it out very quickly, but just a different size, like for perspective, but every week starting very small all the way up to like large, obviously, like the size of a watermelon or cantaloupe on average by the time a baby is born. So a lot of different things happening in the body, a lot of growth of that baby. I think what I'll do is I'll stop here because I have a video clip that goes with this as well, and I don't want to race through it. So what we'll do is we'll stop here and we'll pick up with this on Wednesday. 2 quick like reminders for you. Remember that second assignment is due in about a week and a half, right? So start thinking about it. And then don't forget that little participation exercise is due by tonight. Several of you have already submitted it, but if you haven't, don't forget to do that by this evening. And then again, we'll pick up here when I see you on Wednesday. All right.